Bonjour. How's everybody doing? How many fire people, escote, do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it? Awesome. How many building constrictors do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I should count on Ojibwa. Don't laugh. You know this chubby, what's short in Ojibwa? The month of February. Anybody know how to say February in Ojibwa? Short people. That's for us short, stocky guys. You guys are way too serious. Wow. You should have seen our teacher from Ireland, our teacher from Algonquin teaching us Ojibwa. One's got Ireland dialect, the other's got Algonquin.
We call it back home, very needle gauges.
Needle gauges?
Yeah. Second month.
Second month.
Yeah.
Short.
Yeah. In the community.
And your community is?
Began.
Ah. And you are extremely fire safe in your island.
Oh, that's why I'm here, learn something.
Yeah, but no, you are very fire safe in your island. We have visited your island. Welcome, and to the ones that are our heroes that we call the builders of our community, you are the code walkers. You've heard about the code talkers in Korea and in World War II. The builders are the code walkers. They not only understand what the code is, and if we start to flip through I become ambulatory. I like to move around. Short people of Swamp Creek and Saskatchewan don't like to stay in one spot, my wife found out. And she ain't my wife, it's my work partner, my escote partner. Building a vision. What you learn here, what you've learned in the past, and what you're going to learn in the future is what we hope you take back to your homeland and take it forward to the children that have not been born. That's how we build the future. Has to start with you. Everything has to start with you. When we talk about the big word of capacity building, it's knowledge, skill, experience, and then, as we called, the white man learning. The education you bring into here, you put into here, what comes out here. If it's not committed from here, as everybody knows, where's it committed from? How is it going to happen? It's not going to happen. Some people get upset the way us old folks talk. Never get upset with the message given. When we talk about the responsibility of fire, the responsibility of the builder, the responsibility of the designer, who is the ultimately responsible for your fire safety? Anybody know? Who? I didn't hear that. Who? Who is responsible for your own personal fire safety? Got it. You got it. You are. And if you're not going to accept the responsibility of your own fire safety, who is? Now, can we find fault? Can we push blame? You're darn right we're gonna. That's why you got lawyers. But you are ultimately responsible for your own fire safety. If you take that and grandfather's teachings and put it to your community, we all become safety conscious, we all become responsible, and we all have the responsibility of looking after each other. If I haven't got your back and you haven't got my back, do we have a vision for building the future? No, nothing happens. So when we work together, here's a youngster. How old are you? I don't want to embarrass you. How old are you? 21. 21. You know how old I am?
29.
You're coming home with me. I got 7 generations on you. 21. Can you imagine what the youth that we have today, with what we're going to teach them and teach the elders, teaching the youth, and you taking the leadership? Can you imagine where we can end up in 2050? you'll be almost as half the age I am. And it's good to see the youth involved with this. What do you see there? That's not a phony, or what do you young kids call that? When you put something on a Photoshop? That's a real thing. What do you see there? You think the guy with the fish is in trouble? Okay. So just remember this photo as we're going through this session. The meal. The meal is the guy with the fish is in the meal, the guy's the meal. That actually was the cameraman never told his buddy about the bear behind him. The end of the story is the guy survived the attack, the fish got away. But when we go into a situation, Fire Marshal Monica and I, Monica is also a deputy fire chief in O'Connor Township in a municipal department, and I'm the fat guy who sits on a beaver tail telling the young kids how to get as old as I am through a fire. Right, Bernard? Here's one of my fire chiefs. So what we want you to remember is that what you see, what's behind, and what's on the side. And if we aren't, the constructors, the inspectors, aren't telling the story to the responsible people, do you think we'll ever correct the deficits or non-compliance of a code? Think that'll happen? So you are the eyes and ears of the community to keep a fire-safe home, to keep the fire members safe. What about smoke alarms, CO alarms? How often should we check them? No answer, just think about it. How often should we replace them? Keep that in the back of your memories. We talk about the 7 principles of fire and life safety. We're not going to get into them, but this is how we govern, or when we start to investigate some of the things that we look at. We talked about passive fire protection. When you build a home, this room, for example, has a fire resistive rating. So we know that the fire is burning out there, we're good for at least 20 minutes. In a home, think of the type of material the homes are built from. Think of a building. What are they built from? How much resistive time does a human life have before the fire comes into this compartment? We call this a compartment. Anything that we put onto this room is passive. I want you to think of the carbon monoxide alarm, smoke alarm. Is that passive or active? So when you read this, active means it's going to start to suppress, try to put the fire out to give you some warning. So a working smoke alarm, CO alarm, is that an active system or a passive? Could be. Anybody say passive? Passive? Sure. It depends on how you're looking at it. Active would be, it's going to give me early warning. The new home's burning. Matter of fact, Marshal Monica and I just finished an investigation. The new construction, tripoid basement or crawl space, that new building has a 15-minute window before it gets fully involved, which is up to 1,800 degrees. What's a human life start to die at? You'll find that answer. What's a human breath will quit breathing? At what temperature? At what temperature does your skin start to get red and burn? At what temperature do you start to feel pain? At 1,500 degrees, somebody said it's at Fahrenheit or Celsius. It really doesn't matter, because when it reaches that temperature, you're unconscious and your spirit has left your body. When we look at wood-burning appliances, how many fly-ins do we have here? How many folks in fly-ins? Wow. Put your hands up, be proud of that. We're the ones we want to protect. Couple? How many land-based communities? Nobody? You're not sure? That's when you got a road going there? Okay. The land-based communities are a little bit better for fire protection. The air or the isolated, INAC or ISC doesn't like to use the term isolated. When we start to look at wood-burning appliances, that is the primary heat source. The secondary backup is electric, baseboard. The third backup is open the window because probably the temperature outside is warmer than the temperature inside. See, we equalize it. Tonight you're going to get minus 40-degree temperatures up there. You think, hi, where were you? You had to go to the bathroom. Escote has to go to the bathroom. Oh. Now, where are you from? Matagami. We did your NAPS building up there. We did your police building up there. Inspection. Yeah. Yeah. You know you're on video now? We want to make sure you're on the website tonight. Okay? Welcome back, brother. The two organizations that you want to make sure you start seeing, ULC, CSA, what does it say about them? They're the ones that produce the standards. No. Next one, Mom. When we look at a certified stove, how many folks that are installing, anybody here installing wood-burning appliances? Are you WETT certified? Okay. Think you should be? Sure. Why? Okay, so it's called for. When you look at a certified stove, when we do an investigation, if it's a wood-burning appliance that's involved, we look at, is it certified? How do we know it's certified? Yeah. Keep going. We'll come back to that. Keep going? No. Keep going. We'll be looking for a sticker at the back, and you saw the symbols, Warnock, Hershey, ITLs. You want to make certain that manufacturer, and what's that information in the back of that sticker give you? Clearances, radiation clearances, how close we can put grandma to the stove. So we want to make sure that we have clearances, and somebody said, well, B365 will give me the clearances. The clearances of B365, the standard for wood stoves, installations, or wood-burning appliances, if it's non-certified. So can I install a non-certified stove in a house? Sure you can. Why not? I built it. You're not gonna, you tell me I can't put my own stove in there? Okay. Okay. So I haven't got a certified stove. What do I do with it? Then I go to, what is that standard? B365, the standard of installation for wood-burning appliances. I must then follow that standard. Now, let's, for a rule of thumb, if I have a non-certified stove, it has to be 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet away from combustibles. So I have, my sister here is combustible. My room is only, what's an average room? Shout it out. 10 by 12? Okay, average, 10 by 12. That's metric, right? Imperial. Okay, 10 by 12 feet. What's that in metric, quickly? It's about this long, this long, this long, this wide. Okay, so I have to be 4 feet away from combustibles. Where does my stove have to be in that room? Almost in the center, right? So, Why did we go to certification of wood-burning appliances? Why did we go to other things that we can do to reduce the radiant distance of the stove? Okay? What are those? Labels? Certification labels? So clearance gives us the clearances because they have been tested by the two organizations, ULC. What is the other one? CSA, the standards. So they've done the testing on those manufacturing stoves, and that's what authorizes them to put those labels on. The two organizations give us the standard, and Warnock, Hergy, and all the rest of the other three can now have done the test to give us the safe clearances. We talk about conduction, we talk about radiation, and we talk about convection. And you'll see a little more about that. Yep.
The etching on the label.
Oh, thank you. You see Ironworks on there? Yeah. Would you trust that label? So you have some homework to do. When we see this on an inspection, we'll say, geez, that's nice. It's probably a legit label, but anything that states from the standard, the manufacturer will have it stamped, not written. So when we see something of this nature, it raises a little bit of a question. Yeah, that's it, a whole bunch of flags. So let's find out what the story is. Do you think that manufacturers would try to sneak something in on us? Sure they would. And if we have fly-in communities and we have, let's say 70 houses and 50 homes are going to have replacements, and they send 50 wood stoves up, how many people are going to check for the label? I'm hoping that the supervisor of installation or of construction will do that. I know Bernard would, because he's done that. So these are things that you want to start to remember. Labels, no label, then we have to install to B365. Oh, this. I'll talk to the women first. The woman of the house. Woman of the house reads everything, right? Nod. You guys. What do us guys do? Let's just install it. Yeah, let's get to it. And all of a sudden we say, how come it's not working? Go call the woman, read the book, and she tells us what to do again. Done it a whole bunch of times. So manufacturers' instructions also are a critical part of installation, maintenance, and knowing what should be done, how to do it, and where to do it. Monica, you have anything to say about that? Nothing? Okay.
You got the mic.
You want the mic?
No.
Oh, okay. The other aspect, what's going to give you early warning detection from the gases coming off that stove? CO alarms. I'm going to be really specific with you. When was the last time you checked your CO alarm?
I have one.
Oh, no. When was the last time you checked it? When was that? Usually we say, oh, no, a year ago. Good. He was reading my notes.
Some of them don't have the
No, they're still separate, yeah. You'll find separate CO alarms, and you'll find separate smoke alarms. The current ones are 10-year lithium batteries sealed with the combination CO smoke. Yeah, good. If you have a CO alarm independent, you must replace it every 7 years. I like to say you start looking at it every 5 years to replace those. If it's a smoke alarm, 10 years, I like to see you start looking at replacing those every 7 years. Yep. Same thing? Yeah. If you have a propane fireplace, you should get a propane, well, let's use the term gas, it's early warning detection unit, alarm. They're about $180, but you should have a propane one. Same for natural gas, the ones that have natural gas. The other is when you have a combination smoke CO, 10-year lithium, do you think they ever crash before 10 years? Sure do. Batteries will go stale. The electronics will actually die within 5 years. Even though it states 10 years, that's the optimum. Start to look, anybody in the housing for supervision or management or director of housing, start to look at replacements 5 years, and by the time you get the funding, it'll be 7 years in. Okay? There's our 365. What's a 17? Year of publication or edition, 2017. Well, that's the year, yeah, the edition year. If I see can/CSA, or if I just see CSA, is that the same thing? Pretty well, it's starting to be. It's a Canadian edition CSA, or it's can/UL. So that means a Canadian UL, or UL/ULC. If you're not certain of the terminology, always give your housing people, building code people, a call to see if that standard is Canadian. Remember the old, 48 inches? The old clearances? Were they certified or uncertified stoves? Uncertified. You think we still have those around? Ooh.
Well, actually,
Ooh. You think we still have 45-gallon drums for heating? Realistically, yes, we do. It's unfortunate. This is what, 2020? And my elder friend here, how many years have we been living like that? Too many years. How do we make the change? Where's my 21-year-old boy? My son, stand up. You are going to be the future. That's how. Where's my Escote people? They will make sure he does that. Will band chief, will the directors, will the managers do it? It's going to rely on those folks and the people that are living. Thank you, my son. That's how it's done. Is that just a woman with a brush? And I used to get kicked when I say that. Is that a woman with a brush just cleaning the chimney? On a regular maintenance, right? What is regular maintenance for a chimney? Or wood-burning appliance chimney? Once a season? Okay, we'll accept that. After a chimney fire, usually. How do we know we had a chimney fire? It sounds like a locomotive going through your house. We've responded to, in the fire department, we've responded to 4 chimney fires already. And I just cleaned it last week, honest, Marshall. I just cleaned it last week. I said, sure, okay. We'll show you some pictures. Right, my Escote? Anybody have a chimney fire? Creosote. That's how you get rid of it, right? Have a chimney fire. You know what it sounds like. Your house didn't burn though, right? No, good. Would you accept those chimneys? Why not? That's it. My daughter has given the answer. Unsafe. How do we make a change? What do my brothers here tell me? They want to be WETT certified, right? I wish you well, and I hope so that happens. If you have an opportunity for a wood energy training transfer course, and there's 3 levels, you saw the levels up there, make sure, because at least start to level 1. Work your way to level 3. It takes a number of years to work your way through the courses. They are expensive, They are expensive, and there are exams. Don't be harshened by the exam, or I get a little nervous today. Monica and I had Ojibwe exams. We were full Ojibwe immersion today. You think I got any sleep last night? That's why I'm a little tired. But don't be afraid of the exams. They're good for you. If you don't make it on a first try, you won't succeed. Keep trying, please. But get a hold of a B365. Get a hold of anybody that's WETT certified. They'll share the knowledge with you. Monica and I were WETT certified Finally, Saverio became WETT certified, and we stepped back because we've got lots of other things to get recertified in. Saverio, can you answer that? Recertification for,
Well, I believe it's every 5 years required to take courses.
Okay, so every 5 years.
yeah, recert. Every 5 years for a recert on your level, whether it's level 1, 2, or 3. Once you get to level 3, you just take the one-day course. Yeah. But please consider that. When the opportunity comes from, whether it's through tech services, through ISC, through any organization, NAN, please don't back away. Housing people, take that opportunity and try and get to those courses. They're very relaxed courses and tremendous resources there for you. Certified or uncertified? Would you accept that? Huh? You would? Huh? Is that acceptable? In that location? Near combustible. Chimney's acceptable, right? So depending on the circumstance, and depending what your communities have for a BCR for burning, and you will be going, any chiefs, council members here? None? Can't even get into a good discussion? I guess I'll have to do with my elder here. Yes? Councillor, chief? They're the ones that will give us direction in the community. If we find a great number of situations happening with a wood-burning appliance, then the council, in their wisdom and leadership, would design a BCR to assist that. Now, why do we need, we didn't need it before. Where's my elder? How many times did we see anything on paper over the past years in our community? Much?
No.
No. Today, unfortunately, my brother and brothers and sisters here, the ways things are happening, the future, to cover liability and legality, it's coming our way now. So we have to put it on paper. And that's unfortunate. For 1,000 years, as my elders have said in the circle, we've never seen it, what we discussed, how we talked, and what was given down to us through history. How come we survived so long? But today, the way society is going, you have to really start to consider that. And we'll leave it at that for you, but give you guidance for that. Yeah, that's acceptable. That's just an example of a wood-burning appliance. Is it legal? Yep. Meets code. It's off the floor. So when we do an inspection, why do we want it off the floor? If we have gasoline vapors or petroleum vapors, where are they? Yeah, and they're on the ground, on the floor. That gives us the safe distance. It's been tested to that. Wood burning appliance outside. Any communities have those? Outdoor stoves? No. Sure we do. Yeah. Yeah. And they're, I would say, about the safest you will find. We would like to see more of this. However, you know what's happened? With the wood not being dry, what we now have is carcinogenics in the atmosphere, where our lungs, our old lungs, and the youth lungs, the youngsters, the future, the lungs are becoming contaminated with the carcinogenics, the cancers, the gases coming off the smoke. What will happen if we get a number of those in the community? They will stratify in the temperatures that are going to be happening tonight, and it just lays dormant. So what are we inhaling? Our elders, unfortunately, will inhale that. So, great idea. I love them. However, we get too many of them in one confined area, in the small confines of our community, then the whole community, it's like having a forest fire and you're sniffing that all for about 3 days.
The other thing with outdoor wood furnaces, if you continually burn green wood, you have chimney fires and you don't know about it. and that shortens up the life of the stove. So if you burn seasoned, dry wood, your stove is going to last a lot longer. Have you ever seen a chimney fire in your wood stove? A lot of times you don't, because you fill it up and you walk away. You come back later and go, wow, that chimney pipe looks a little bit different color. And that's because you had a chimney fire. But it also shortens up the metal, it also corrodes the metal. It also corrodes the inside lining of the stove as well too. That's why it's important to use 2-year seasoned dry wood at minimum. Pardon? The outdoor wood stove? If you're burning your wood dry, you're going to clean it once a season. And you're just going to put a brush down it, and then there's also a rake. That there's a door that you open up, and you rake it out. When you see that gummy, real rich tarry smell coming out, and it's like petroleum product, you're burning wet wood, and it's eventually that's going to catch fire, and it could catch your whole stove on fire.
Which community is that? Okay. Yep. What we also want you to think of is the interior wood stoves. And we know that, and realism is that if we get a 90-day drying period, it's dry wood, realistically. If we get a 30-day drying period, realistically in some of our communities, that's a good drying period. So what that should happen is that if it's elderly, young, challenged, that have it, a young mama, is that those homes should be inspected on a regular basis. I would say once every month, 2 months. How long is our winter season? 6 months. So at least 3 times throughout the winter season, minimum. And should they be cleaned that often? You'll see some of the pictures that happen with wet burning wood, the buildup. Pellet stove. If you have pellet stoves, make sure you're following the manufacturer's installation, instructions, and maintenance. If they stall and you don't use the recommended pallets, you're destroying the stove, the box, the heat box itself, and you require electricity. Catalytic versus non-catalytic. Catalytic, hopefully, I believe this presentation will be on the, where is it? On the Savvy. This presentation will be on the somewhere that they can get a copy? Okay. That presentation is available for you guys. But where was I? Okay. Just waiting for one of my kids to answer me. You know what happens when you get old, eh? Where am I? Don't pass the bathroom? Okay. Enough said. So the catalytic, if you have a catalytic stove, not a converter, a catalytic stove, make sure again that you're following the manufacturer's manual. What will happen is that the catalytics will be destroyed very quickly through improper burning or improper fuel. And we've had that happen through it. I love catalytics. It does an excellent job of heating and conserving the amount of wood intake into the fire. I'm not a wood burner now. Monica is the wood burner. She has one in her house, and you'll see some of the photographs of it. Catalytic wood stoves. Yep. That's just examples for you. EPA certified. Environmental protection. What can I say about it? What good is an EPA stove? Well, it cuts down the amount of gases that are going into the environment that our members are going to breathe. Our children, our elderly, and yourselves. How many smoke here? How many? Holy smokes, we're cutting down. Matthew, put that in the annals of the candle. Our smokers are being shut down. Awesome. Well, just think of smoking 10 packs in one day. Can you imagine that? What your lungs are going to look like? If you start to reduce and you don't have EPA certified stoves, what is going to happen is that continuous burning, which occurs, that is how much your lungs are accepting on a burn. 10 packs of cigarettes. And that's why we like to see EPAs. And majority of stoves that are produced today are EPA certified. Other than the ones that are non-certified, that are homemade or have come across the border, whether it's from Quebec, Manitoba, into our Ontario, BC, where's my BC person? You'll get it through the United States. So that's why it's important to look at the label. They will identify also EPA as well for you. Yeah, I noticed that your BCR and your bylaws, I was following them for a while, yeah. Yeah. Sure, I think it's great. And just what I said to our counselor, things are changing for you guys. No more what is good as we talk, eye to eye. We now have to put it on paper. It's unfortunate. Seasoned wood, Mon mentioned that to you? Pyrolysis. What is pyrolysis? Where's my Escote people? That's what starts house fires. Gives you a good barbecue. The coals. What happens if I clean my wood stove out about midnight? I'm going to clean the wood stove out. Building's nice and warm. Going to put the coals and the ashes on the wood stove. Oh, here's a cardboard box. Take it out, put it on the front porch. Porch is a wooden deck. I better have a smoke before I go to bed. Mama doesn't know I'm out here. That's my smoke. Go back in the house. Yeah, it should be good enough. Close the door, go to bed. About 1 o'clock in the morning. What do you think is going to happen about 7 o'clock in the morning? We have a house fire. We just finished doing an investigation in a community. Accidental, unfortunate, but it's one of those improper disposal, one of those, I'll get to it, it should be okay, it's a cold night out. One of those, I hear a noise, I hear a weird noise, it's crackling, smell something. Smoke alarm hasn't gone off yet. The fire drops down from the deck. It's a crawl space, drops into the crawl space. Everything, the house has been built to compliancy. Accidental. The wind takes the embers and the coal underneath the building. You're shooting temperatures of 700 degrees. Basement is going, it's cooking. Or not the basement, the crawl space is cooking now. Cooking, we have from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Let's use a window of 6 hours cooking time. Eventually the temperature gets to melting temperature of styrofoam of the aluminum joists to about 18 to 2,000 degrees underneath. The floor in that fire sector drops. Opens up a space of that much. Where's the fire going to go now? Inside the house. Smoke alarm hasn't gone off yet. The occupant hears noises, gets up. What's going on? Doesn't realize the floor is wobbly because the infrastructure of the floor support has been degraded, goes to open the front door, fire, calls to his wife, his woman, gets her out safely, goes, oh my gosh. Then the smoke alarm goes off. So you see the time warning with early warning devices, it hasn't gone off yet because the smoke alarm has nothing to pick up. No carbon monoxide gases yet. But as soon as she broke into the house, all the alarms decided to go off. So we knew they were working. So what do? We go back to our building code people. How can we stop this from happening? The building was built to full code compliance. We re-educate the community. It's called, now we have a 30-day window to educate about wood coals, ashes. Who does that? Our Escote people? Our housing people? Our community leaders? Where's my young man? It's going to be the future leader. Who's going to do that for us? Ourselves. We collectively will meet with the Escote specialist of fire, the leadership in the community, the council, the housing specialist, the code walkers. How can we stop this from happening? Will we? Shake your head no. Go like this, everybody. It's not going to happen. Human behavior tells us no matter what we say, we're still going to do what we want. The thing is, we can reduce by making notations every second week, not every day. It's like if you see a movie over and over again, eventually you know all the lines. I sleep through most of them now. So what we want to do, I'm old. So what we want to do is give spirited messages. You know what it is in your community, what's going to spirit them. You know the motivation. How do I talk at that age level? How do I talk to the gender age level? How do I talk to the elder level? Who has the secret? The community has the secret of doing it. Remember we said building better visions, forwarding to the future? You have to come up with that answer. I can give you all the resources. You in the community, and only you in the community, can come up with that answer. Don't look at the government for help. Anybody from the government here, by the way? We'll meet outside, fourth tree over. Have to give you a map. I worked for them for 20 years, 25 years as a fire marshal. I know how I used to get lost. No, the answer is you and everybody in this, you, my children, are the ones who will be giving the answer, regardless of what your education level, regardless of your stature in the community, regardless of what you want. You are the one that will have the solution to this problem. And that's where my son comes in, to make sure they understand where the future is. Pyrolysis and thermal pyrolysis. You read it? Temperatures get exceedingly high. That's what we identify with. Now you see a couple of gases there. Some of them, the hydrocarbons, but some of them you can't even pronounce. They're the ones that kill you 20, 30 years later. I've been in firefighting over years, a few months. I got cancer, kidney cancer, diagnosed 3 years ago. You know what they say? Stuff happens. I was fortunate. The members of the community are not that fortunate. They're breathing the stuff in. What do you see there? What's that? What is that big word? Discoloration? What is the big word we were using about that? When you see that on an inspection, what would you do? We got proper clearance. We got 18 and 8. What about a radiation pad on the floor? So we see, when we see that, why is it important to do at least one inspection a year? Why is it important? Do you think that we need somebody official from the office, from housing coming in, or Escote department? Can you not do that? But just a minute, hold on here. Let's have a talk. Let's have a talk. How many years have we been living there?
40 years.
40 years. How many years have how many times have they replaced that? They haven't. How many times have we told council about it? Have they? Yearly. 40 years we've been there. Every year we go and talk to them. You know what they tell us? Well, then we'll get to it, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Just, yeah, okay. Let's go have a cup of tea. What do we do now? 40 years I've been... what do you think? Well, maybe we'll let it burn and we'll get another house. Huh? This time, whatever, this time. What do you think, huh? Eventually, 40 years has gone by. That's 2 life expectancies of a structure in the north, in the far north, on a land-based community. We're finding out 40 years is now becoming, 40 to 50 years is becoming an average life expectancy of a house. But who's going to make that change? Where's my son? Stand up, my son. We keep talking to our boy, our future leader, giving them the information and making sure Toronto Maple Leaf gets the Stanley Cup. Well, what's this? The thing is, thank you, my son, they are the ones with us talking to them. That could be the next chief of the community, the next grand chief, and the next grand chief. And if we don't information them all that time, it's like they tell us every year, we'll have some martini, it's okay, don't worry about it. So, how do we change it? We keep going on and on. Oop. Makeshift wood stoves, go ahead. Oh, I built one of those, proud as heck. Never used a welder in my life. Bought a MIG welder for 180 bucks. Called my buddy and said, how do you use these things? He told me, there it is. What's wrong with that? Works. Would you pass that? Well, I know it's only a greenhouse, but would you make a pass on that? Sure, why not? You're going to see this. That is current. What's wrong with that? Okay. Sad tale. Mama had a loss in the community. Can you sleep if you have a loss in the community? What happens to your heart? Mm-hmm. Factory-built chimneys also have a standard. Acceptable, unacceptable. Acceptable, unacceptable. We found this after a fire. Acceptable, unacceptable. Now, where's my installers that aren't WETT certified? Where are my brothers over there? Put your hands up. Don't be shy. Huh? They're the ones that are going to lead in the community education with the WETT program and their knowledge and skills. They're going to find out that what we've been doing for years, and what, my brother over there, 40 years we lived in that house, nobody gave, well, yeah, we'll just have a cup of tea and we'll take care of you. So the future, where's my son? Stand up. Come on, stand, be proud now. We're going to make sure you're going to be a chief. There is where we got to make sure that the youngsters are learning it. Thank you, my son. That's how we have to be consistent, but be respectful. If we want to get it done, it's like, I'm a Toronto fan. Eventually I'll get to see a Stanley Cup. Well, maybe not. I'm getting close to the edge to see my Eagle, my McEasy. So the thing is that, don't laugh, guys. Toronto will get it. The thing is that if we don't start yesterday and be consistent, as my brother has, that we will eventually have not only fire-safe communities, but the lungs, the health-safe communities. Whoop, what happened? Yeah, there was a failure. You know what? We as fire marshals, I don't know, what, 20-some years, 20 years with Matawa. When I was a provincial marshal, for, I don't want to tell you because then you figure out how many years I've been in the business, is that I've got more airtime than most of you guys been alive on Earth in IKEA. But the thing is that when we see failures, we look at it. Where's my constrictors, my building people? Either I go after Savvy, I go after my counselor, or I go after the escote people. Or do I go after the homeowner? We want to inform everybody. We know what happened, but is anybody going to listen? My son, you're stressed out, right? You mentioned that after a fatality, a loss. How do I get through to you? Talking about it. Having some tea with them. Not right away, you got to give them time, but moving back. That's how we get the message. You guys thought you're going to do, oh, there goes the fire chief. Where you going, Escote? Let's get. You thought you're going to get technical information. It's called motivation for technical. You can get technical information Wednesday. You can get technical information from WETT people like Savvy. Building people that are on the building code. What we got to do is motivate you. How are you going to give the message back to the people? Because we had a catastrophic failure and we had a fire and a fatality. I was just telling you the WETT and NFI, American certification, you'll see that on your labels as well. Some things you should have when you build and put in a wood-burning appliance. Not only a wood-burning appliance, should be in every home. 10-pound fire extinguisher ABC, working smoke alarms, CO alarms, and supersede what the code says. What we say is, well, NFC, ABC, or NBC, NFPA, National Fire Protection, what else? Ontario Building Code, Ontario Fire Code. Well, it says, you know, the people that are telling you this don't give a darn who's going to be living there? What happens if when I grow old, what'd you say? My hearing starts to drop. Or I get up in the morning and I pee in a corner instead of the bathroom. Couldn't see. Or I'm getting old. My hips and my knees don't want to work. They don't really think about us that are getting old. As the home today, this is 2020, where's my son? Stand up. He's going to remember this session. 20 years from now, you're going to be 31. Right? You're going to be 41 or 20. See, I can't even count now being old. What the heck's wrong? Oh, the memory starts to go. Right? So, 20 years from now, the house we built today is 20 years old. He's still young and spry. Sit down. What about me? What about my elder over here? We're 20 years older. How are we going to be feeling? Well, yeah, I got Swamp Creek blood on me. At least half of it anyway. I don't know what the other half is. But we're getting older. Now what happens? See, the codes will look after the construction of that year. Does the community, and my counselor will say, do we keep maintaining it? Well, if we don't get funding, pretty hard to maintain it, right? Where's my brother with the stove? 20 years, 40 years we've been talking about that darn thing, but there's no funding. So how do we get it? My son is going to have to figure that out. Here are common issues that we found. Maintenance, the big one. Improper installation, not so much, but maintenance becomes the biggest thing. And then clearance from combustibles. Common example, When Monica and I go in for an investigation, remember the home that we are investigating, or the building. If you are living in there, that's your home. It's called respect. We do not show photos of our investigation. They go to the community that we do the investigation with, but the respect that is given to your home, regardless of what we see in there, stays with that investigation. So when you're inspecting, and I've got fellow inspectors that have also made the statements of something that they've seen in a home, unless it's common knowledge to share, is always have the respect of the occupant and in that home. That's just a statement I want to make for you. What's that thing on the wall there? We want to reduce the radiant clearance for the stove. So what do? What do we put up? Backplate, shield. What's another word? Fireboard. Sure. All that terminology. The most common thing that we found from the investigations or inspections is that 1 inch clearance from the bottom and the 1 inch clearance from the wall, so that you get the heat and the air circulating. We found that folks didn't pay much attention to it, or if it was built to compliancy, eventually something gets stuck, inhibits the flow of the air. Remember baseboard heaters, another incident that we investigated. 1 inch clearance from the floor and 6 to 12 inch clearance around the electric heater, baseboard heater, and annually cleaned. You install it properly, but it's the maintenance factor after. Showing you more of the clearances. There's, Monica can touch on the, you're getting into the chimneys. I gave you 15 minutes. Whoops. Okay, any, up to this point, did I upset you? You left on me or what? No, you sure? Okay. I'll buy you a cup of tea. That's okay. Any questions before we turn it over to Monica?
Can you, can you hear me? No. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Testing, testing. There we go. Okay, I'm going to hang on to this and that. I'm not going to give the remote to Mo. Anyways, what was your question about the chimney?
The insulated chimneys, some of them are 1 inch and there's 2 inch
Yes.
thickness.
I believe it's 2 inch now is to code.
Yeah, because there are some that have the 1 inch too, but
Yeah, and it depends on how the chimney is installed in the home as well. And some of the, particularly in this picture here, how far back do I have to go? This one here is, that used to be the old Selkirk chimney, and then there was another one that was before that, a predecessor to the Selkirk chimney, and that was the 1 inch diameter insulation around. But they found out that wasn't enough, because when you're putting that through the ceiling, through the floors, in this first picture on your left, you can see where there's a stove that's installed in the basement area, but you have to have your clearance plate top and bottom there. But it has to keep the heat inside so that when it makes its way out through the chimney, you're not losing too much into the house. With a 1 inch, you were losing too much into the house. Okay, and a lot of times, a lot of the 1-inch insulated pipes corroded quicker. I guess they found out the metal wasn't strong enough and it was pitted because of the creosote. But this wood here, sorry about that, the heat is maintained inside and it flows up and through and goes out. The drafting process, okay, without going into detail on that, the 2-inch is the one to go with, whether you have the pipe installed inside or outside.
Yeah, because there are some wood stoves that recommend to use this kind, or depends what kind of stove.
Yeah, the manufacturers, read the instructions for the manufacturer's installation on that as well too. And if you don't have that one, then go to the 2-inch pipe. The inside diameter of the pipe, you can buy the different sizes, whether it's the 5-inch or the 6-inch, I think it is. So you would buy the one that would suit your stove. And then that pipe, your flue pipe, that's your chimney. Your flue pipe from the stove to the chimney, that's going to be your double wall black pipe. And any wood stoves in a home should have the double wall because that maintains that heat inside. It keeps the flue gases that go in, it keeps them nice and dry and then up and out. And that's where creosote develops. If you're burning wet wood, and the more you can keep that heat in your pipe, the better off you are. Okay, give me this one here. And your flue pipes should be cleaned annually, sometimes twice. I have food for thought on this one here. When you're burning wet wood, how easy is it going to be to clean your pipes? Who cleans the pipes in your communities here? Anybody here clean our chimney sweeps in your community here? Any of you guys? Okay, so how easy is it to clean a chimney that has wet creosote in it? How clean do you get it? Yeah. So what do you do in that case? Yeah, you clean it as best as you can, but when the homeowner decides to come in at the end of the day and fire up that wood stove and puts in a few more pieces of paper that they normally would, plus dry kindling, and then just to get that fire going, you're going to get a whoosh up that chimney. The instant heat from that, if there's any dry creosote in there, it's going to ignite, and it's also going to dry out that wet creosote really quick. And then you've got a massive chimney fire, and it's almost impossible to put that out. And that's where you get the sound of a locomotive. Yes?
5 minutes.
Well, thanks. And that's why I say it's so important to burn dry wood. And if you can get your teens or your early 20 folks in your community as a work project or whatever to cut and stack wood, cut the wood, split the wood, bark side up, let it dry for 2 years. You start it now and you don't touch it for 2 years, but next year you start cutting more wood. So when the third year you start burning that first year wood, you're burning nice dry wood. I know it's hard to do, but once you get that cycle started, then you're going to find that your stoves are going to last longer, your pipes are going to last longer, and what you want to see inside your chimneys and your flues and your pipes when you clean them out, especially when you pull your flues down, you're going to pull it out, you run your finger inside, and hope to God you don't see any of that wet creosote, and if you do, replace your pipes. But what you need to see is dark brown, very, very fine light ash. We can go like that and really make a smudge with it, but it's very, very fine. And that's easy to clean out. And if you don't clean it out, it's not a big deal. But if you do get that buildup of ash, you're going to find on your horizontal pipes, if you do have horizontal pipes, you might have a little bit of a layering at the bottom. Scrape that out and then clean your stove out as well too. But if you let that creosote build up, I know the crinkling sound of creosote that you get in your pipes when you're cleaning them. If you don't get that out, that burns extremely hot. That's where you get your 2,000 degrees and maybe even hotter. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. Keep it operating efficiently. I burned wood for 45 years. I have been burning wood for 45 years. I've had a chimney fire. I almost burned a house down because I lit up a wood cook stove, and I was going to cook a stew that night, and I thought, oh, I was burning tamarack wood. And who's familiar with tamarack? That's probably just about the worst wood you could possibly put in a wood stove because it's so high in pitch. And it had a little bit of moisture in it as well too, but I got that stove just roaring, and I turned my back on it and I thought, there's a locomotive coming through my house. And that's the first time I ever experienced a chimney fire. I turned around and I looked at my stove and I'm going, oh my God. When my knees turned to water, I think the blood drained out of my face, and I'm going, I'm watching, the pipe is turning just as red as your shirt and your jacket. I stood dumbfounded. I'm going, why is that turning red? So it was a fairly new pipe, and not only that too, after I hollered at my neighbors, they came running, they helped me put it out. When it come time to change that pipe or to take the pipe down to check it out, and this is something well worth noting when you have a chimney fire, just how much damage a fire can do. I went to take that, after it was cooled, I went to take the pipe down. Well, I didn't have to, I just touched it and it crumbled in my hand. So I could have lost the whole house, but I was fortunate that day. All right. We talked about the maintenance. Maintenance is really, really important. Get a chimney sweep, clean it out twice a year if you have to. If you're burning good, encourage your folks to teach them how to burn properly. Stoves. Install your stoves based on your manufacturer's specifications or B365. Can't repeat that enough. Inspect them, inspect them, inspect them. Make sure the rain caps are on them on the outside. And the S2100 pipes, they'll take a couple of chimney fires, but if you've had 2 of them in there, be very wary of the third one. You might have to take your pipe sections apart just to check them out. Put your hands inside and make sure there's no pitting or little pit holes in there. So these are some of the configurations. Which one do you think is the best one? What do you think? Right? Which one's the worst one? Right on, the middle one. So, but all of those are doable. And we know the 90-degree rule, 45-degree rule. And this is the pipe going out from the outside there. Mine is like that. I don't have a chase on mine. And it does well. And I also have an EPA-approved stove, but it's not a catalytic. I prefer not to use that because those are kind of finicky. I prefer to use the one that is an EPA-approved stove. The original parlor stove I had in my house, my neighbors cringed every time I fired it up because it was just, I made the neighborhood black. It was stratified black and gray smoke. Mo wasn't too happy about it, and neither was his wife. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to buy an EPA-approved stove. Well, after that point, once I started firing it up, it's like, did you even fire up the wood stove? I go, oh yeah, the house is nice and warm. Can't you smell it? Because I burn birch. And you buy a stove that is specific to the square footage of your house. Don't buy a stove that is, bigger is better. In a wood stove, that is not the case. You have to put a stove to the size of your house. So I have that medium-sized wood stove because I have 900 square feet in my house. And once I start that up in October and shut it off in March, maybe April, depending on the snow, my furnace doesn't kick in at all. And in fact, I have to open up my windows because it's so warm in my house. But you buy a stove to the size of your house. So safety.
Have it installed by a professional. And if you haven't used it for any length of time, make sure you inspect it before you do, because you don't know if there's a bird in there, in one of your elbows, or a raccoon. I don't know if raccoons go up north, but you may find some critters in there. Birds, I always have birds fly into my wood stove, because I have a glass door in the front, and when I can't find my cats, I know they're downstairs, and they're watching TV in front of my wood stove because there's a bird fluttering in there. So I got to retrieve it and put it outside. Annual inspection of your chimneys and your wood stove, all your piping, and make sure, and this is the other thing too, is there was the one picture back there where it looked like there was chain link fencing around the one wood stove. That's so children don't burn themselves, or you have an older pet or something that's losing their sight or whatever. You don't want them to get burned. But what's the first thing that we do when we've got a wood stove going and we got kids who have wet clothes when they're outside playing? What do? Yeah, we hang them up on the fence, eh? So is that combustible? Yeah, it is. Fire takes off. Yeah, gets hot. What's that called? Pyrolysis? And proper spacing between your upholstery, carpeting, and furniture. So watch what you put close to the stove, because pyrolysis happens. Doesn't matter what you put there. Creosote buildup. Who's seen a pipe like that? You're in a lot of trouble if you've got that. You're just begging for a chimney fire. You don't want to get to that point. And this one here, it's hard. It was a hard picture to take, that one there, but this one is that crinkly kind of glossy type creosote. This one will catch fire. That one will catch fire quite easily if you put kindling in your wood stove and you light the paper and you just open up the door and let her run. That'll catch fire and you got a chimney fire. Now what about your picture on the right? Just in case you can't figure, or you haven't figured it out, that's a staircase going down. You think that's certified? No. Okay, animals nest, and it can be, I don't know if skunks can climb up into areas like that, but possums, groundhogs. There's a couple of more pictures. Yeah, we're not going to do this. This one on the left is South America, and I think the one on the right is down south somewhere. But either case, it's not compliant. You can see it's such a tremendous fire hazard. Stove failures. Improper installation on this one for sure. Could this have been prevented? Absolutely. Chimney fires, that whole mechanism has to be replaced. And when you have that much damage in there like that too, you're going to be wanting to take a look at the piping all the way down. This is a fire that we had gone to. Apparently, if you're going to be doing a WETT inspection and you're going to be approving a stove, make sure you have that certificate from whoever has done the WETT inspection. And if you are doing the inspections, make sure you provide that certificate. Apparently this was approved by a WETT inspector, but I would never have passed that. I wouldn't have passed that. Fire happened in the basement. There was too many pipes, too many different angles, and too many elbows. And if you can take a look at this particular picture here in the bottom left, those are actual holes. Creosote did that to the pipe. The pipe was not on the correct angle, and the stove was not properly cleaned out, and they were actually burning wet wood. So you were getting that buildup of creosote in there. When then she finally took off, it was a tremendous amount of damage. We could have lost the house, but we didn't. It was a good call by the fire department. So, is this compliant? No. Is this compliant to our building constructors? What do you see there? What's staring at you? Oh, well, and not only that, it's elbows, but yeah, that's the big thing. They cut a ceiling rafter, eh? That's weight bearing. This is the, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for the words here right now, but that's the metal plate that goes around the pipe that goes through your wall. In this case, this one is stood up because this is the one that went through the floor. And I think what this picture is showing here, they put the wrong, right on the edge here, a fire caulking on there, fire resistant rating on there, and it wasn't the right one. And when the chimney caught fire, that melted, and I guess it caught fire and then did some damage to the woodwork underneath. Again, that was a good save by the fire department on that, but I just wanted to show you that there's always a gap when you're putting that plate around a pipe. So you need to put in fire resistance rating caulking.
Fire stopping is not reading.
Yeah,
Fire stop.
yeah. So this is important. For those who have had a chimney fire, what did you do? Who can tell me what they did in a chimney fire? You're right. You're absolutely right. That's the first thing you do. You call the fire department. Okay, close the door in the damper, shut off the air supply. Now this is really optional. If you're scared to do it, don't do it. But if you have a chimney fire, just remember, when you have heat, heat goes up, and that's that sound of the locomotive. So when you open up your fire door, the door to your wood stove, have a cup of water, or like no more than a container that much of water. You can open it up and shoot that in, shut the door really quick. Now what does that do? Who can tell me? It does too, but what's happening with the water when you throw it in that hot environment? Turns it to steam. And then you got this block of steam going straight up the chimney. So as that air is pushing out the chimney, it's drawing air into the wood stove. So it's going to take it and hopefully put out at least the bottom end of the fire. And then you shut everything down and shut all the dampers. So that's what they're saying there. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. And then the other one that they do too is they make those little fire extinguisher balls. You can put that in your wood stove and yeah, okay. Call the fire department, get everybody out of the house. And if the fire department happens to be there, hose down the roof, because then you've got a lot of embers and whatnot that are shooting out the chimney. And that will spread quite a ways. And avoid spraying water down the pipe or the chimney, because you could scald anybody in the house that happens to be there. Have the stovepipe or chimney thoroughly cleaned and inspected before reusing. And if it's an older pipe system, you're looking at replacing it. Okay? That could have been prevented. Quick facts, we covered them all. Type of wood that you use in a stove, that's another one. And heat transfer. Quickly read that. Hot to cold, cold to hot. Mo touched on this one already, conduction, convection, radiation. You can transfer heat by just touching something. Convection, transferring it up a wall. Radiation, as in the sun rays. Now this is cool information to know. If you use the heat gun on your wood stove, 400 degrees, and I've had mine 500, maybe 600 degrees on the top of my stove. Inside the stove, it's 1,000 degrees, and it could be a little hotter. Sometimes I get this little beep that says I can't register it anymore because it's too hot. And then if a chimney fire occurs, it's going to be 2,000 degrees plus. And it doesn't matter whether it's Celsius or Fahrenheit. Quick little thing, if you want to take a picture of that with your camera, it's interesting to note that Human skin temperature at which tissue is instantly destroyed, 72 degrees Celsius or 162 Fahrenheit. Right. Disposal of wood ash. Motot touched on that as well too. Metal pail with a lid. Even if you use an old cooking pot, put the lid on it. Take it outside, and even if you got your socks on your feet and it's the winter time, obviously it's the winter, take it and walk it away from the house. Doesn't matter in the snow. You can shake the snow off your socks, but it's going to take a heck of a long time to rebuild that house when the house burns down, because you put the ashes on the step that burned down through and went underneath the building. And don't put it up against your neighbor's fence, because it'll burn your fence. Okay. Almost worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? Right on. Carbon monoxide. That's why we need those alarms. Carbon monoxide symptoms, if you want to shoot a quick picture of that, this is going to be available anyway. But go ahead and take a picture. These are good to know. Okay, next one is the same thing. That might be a little bit easier to take a picture of. Signs and symptoms. Get to know them. I want to get crazy carpets made like this so kids have fun on them and remember Sparky. It's the law. It's the law. Let's use it. Let's not abuse it, but let's use it. A fire safety plan. There's our mind mapping, how we learn. Our home escape planning. Give a piece of paper to the kids in the house and get them to draw the escape plan for the house. And parents and elders, get on the floor with the kids and practice this. Carbon monoxide sources in the home, there's a whole bunch. If you have gas, you can take a picture of this one if you want. Smoke alarms, placements on every floor and sleeping rooms. Signs of a good night out. How many of us judge a book by a cover? Carbon monoxide could be disguised by, or a good night out could be disguised by. Carbon monoxide poisoning is serious. It accumulates in the body, and it takes a long time to come out, and it's cumulative. So if we're all exposed to carbon monoxide in this room today, for 10 minutes, we walk out, come back tomorrow, and we are exposed to it again tomorrow, and the next day, it accumulates in our system. Carboxyhemoglobin, that replaces the oxygen molecules on our blood supply. So don't assume it's a good night out. It could be carbon monoxide poisoning. And of note to our folks in here who have children, and especially babies, young ones, and you do have a suspect carbon monoxide poisoning in your home, pull down your baby's lip and check their gums. If their gums are cherry red, you have to get to the nursing station like that, because babies will be affected by carbon monoxide more readily than adults will. As we get older, we smoke, and after babies, it's critical because their oxygen is being displaced by carbon monoxide. There, any questions? Yes.
What are you placed, how reliable they are to heat?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Fireplace, how reliable they are to heat?
If,
And another one is before, how hazardous, what percentage of fire hazardous they are inside the house?
are you fireplace or wood stove?
The fireplace inside the house.
Okay, is it the freestanding wood stove you're talking about, or
No,
the
I'm not talking about the wood stove, it's the fireplace.
just a fireplace?
Built to the standard, they're as safe as the wood stove.
They're as safe as the wood stove, as long as you have it installed by a professional.
I know keep you fireplace in the houses, that's why you ask.
I lived in a house that had a fireplace, and it didn't have any glass doors on the front, and I found it wasn't efficient. Most of my heat was going up out the chimney. But once I put the glass doors on the front, it was efficient. The maintenance is still the same as a wood stove. You still have to maintain, you still have to clean your pipes, you still have to watch the type of wood that you're burning, and you can't leave it unattended. And then depends on the type of model that you have, whether it's you can lay the wood right on the hearth, right inside the stove, or if you have to put it in one of those baskets. So it's whatever the manufacturer's instructions tell you you need to do with it. They can be as safe and as efficient as a wood stove, yes, as long as you use it safely.
If it's had multiple ownership, you should have a wet inspection.
Yes, and that was the next thing.
Any more than one owner in a house, then you should, not must, but you even must have a wet inspection on that. Because we don't know what the alterations will have.
Yeah.
Or if the maintenance is whatever.
Okay? And is your second question?
That's the key question, how reliable they are for the heat and fire.
If they have if they have a door on the front, they're okay. But if they're straight open, the heat goes straight up the chimney. That's just from my experience. That's why I've always gone to a closed wood stove. That's
Focus on hanging on the side of the fireplace that I seen when I go to the house.
yes,
So they poke it with the fire.
Yeah.
With the fire, and it happens if there's a little spark on the poker.
Yeah.
And then you start the fire.
yeah. But that's why you have to have clearance in the front. You have to have a non-combustible front. It has to go out at least 48 inches. And a spark screen in the front. So as long as there's nothing, a non-combustible floor in the front of it, then, yeah, it's not going to catch fire. But if you have carpeting there and whatnot. Okay, any more questions? And there, hang on. Thank you. Have a fire safe day. Miigwech.
Thank you, Monica and Mo, on your presentation. Thank you very much.